Hello, everybody. This is Mariusz Duda from Lunatic Soul / Riverside, and you're listening to Progcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Progcast. I'm your host Dario, and if in case you missed the news over the last month, we've been putting out the Progcast episodes twice a week, one on Monday and one on the Thursday. Plus, we have a new format, which is the Friday Top 5, in which my colleague Randy Salo breaks down our top 5 releases of the week from the prog world, of course. So check that out. You can also find that on the Prog Space Facebook and Instagram, IGTV, and also on the Prog Space YouTube. Now back to this episode of the Progcast. As you just heard, on the show today is Mariusz Duda. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
As we heard, you have two bands. Well, one real band and then like a solo project. And I hope you forgive me the little story time because, I remember quite fondly a situation when I was like much younger. And I read in the German Rock Hard magazine probably something about Riverside's debut album, Out of Myself, back in 2003 maybe. And so that was obviously way before Facebook, YouTube, MySpace, whatever. So I went to the record store and I looked for it and I put it in the record store in the CD player where you could check it out. And I was skipping through the songs and then I arrived at Reality Dream 2, and the intro is that it kind of flashed me so much that I needed the CD instantly. So I came for this instrumental craziness, but I stayed for the emotional gravitas of the Reality Dream trilogy in the Riverside universe. A little story before we dive now into your solo discography, which I, interestingly enough, never really checked out, even though I was a big fan of Riverside since the very beginning. I don't know, maybe when the first Lunatic Soul album came out in 2008, maybe it just didn't connect with me at that time because I was listening to it today, actually, to the first two Lunatic Soul albums, and I was vibing. I was really very much vibing to them. Anyway, of course, you have a new solo album now with that Lunatic Soul project coming out, and that's the 7th Lunatic Soul album already, Through Shaded Woods. And it's different than the previous ones because the fracture
previous 6 ones.
I thought when I was listening to the first two, they also had some acoustic guitars in there and some ritualistic percussion stuff. But then, of course, with impressions and so on, you went in a very electronic direction, and now everything is different. So maybe you can tell us how it came to that.
How it came to what?
to being
it sounds different, or to the fact that I started Lunatic Soul, because I kind of lost. I do hope that I'm a pretty okay guest today. I still think that we are not only because of Riverside, but also because of Lunatic Soul.
Of course. Of course, the main focus will be on Lunatic Soul today.
Sure, but so I'm not sure where should I start this. This is what you said. I'm mostly connected with progressive rock and Riverside. People know me from this band mostly, and they know also that I started something like Lunatic Soul that I do from time to time, but they don't maybe pay attention to this because it's something different, smaller, maybe more solo. Maybe this is not connected with this band, magic things, because bands are always adored by people, and with the solo artist is a different thing. And if you have a band and if you have a solo project, which means that solo project, it's something less important than the band. But for me, Lunatic Soul was always very important, equally as Riverside, mostly because thanks to Lunatic Soul, I could develop myself. And that's why I started Lunatic Soul mostly. I didn't start it because I was frustrated by the fact that, I don't know, I did with Riverside only 20% of what I could. No, most of the things are with Riverside I do. And like I'm a leader of the band and I do most of the music. So I don't have to do anything else to just express myself, because I have some problems with my band. That's not true. But I was tired of the fact that I have to release the album every 2 or 3 years, mostly. Okay. So I did and started Lunatic Soul. That was, let's say, some kind of introduction for why I started this.
Yeah.
But so imagine that you are the guy who's just behind the stories with Riverside, behind the concept, behind the main music and everything. And when you want to do something more, you just simply can't repeat the same. I didn't want to repeat the same. I didn't want to release something under my own name, which sounds exactly like Riverside. That's why I just simply said no to many solutions, like no electric guitar, no David Gilmour solos on Lunatic Soul. And for instance, and I also said that I abandoned the formula. I don't want to play like progressive rock. I just want to create something which is ambient music, maybe electronic music, maybe folk music, maybe cinematic music, maybe something also connected with prog music, but not like, stricter prog. I wanted to create my own style. So that was my goal for Lunatic Soul when I started this in 2008. And releasing all these albums through all these years. And we have the 7th one right now. So what was the question again?
I'm very happy that you went also on this little journey and told us about the how Lunatic Soul came to be in the first place. That was a very, very interesting insight. So the question now is, of course, that after 6 albums that were more and more exploring electronics, the electronic side of music. Now with the new album, it's very, very obvious, and that you go back to some of your folk roots, I guess. So I'm very curious how this decision, how you came to this decision. If it was like conscious, I want to do this now, or if you wanted to do it for a long time and now was the perfect timing, or if it just happened like this.
First and foremost, each Lunatic, I will just maybe do some backstory again.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important. Sure. Every Lunatic Soul should be different. This is like with Riverside. I always wanted to record different albums. That's why Reality Dream Trilogy was just like one piece of music, separate. Anno Domini High Definition was more on the steroids and more hyperactive. And Shrine of New Generation Slaves and Love with the Time Machine was more songish and stuff like that. So the same with Lunatic Soul. The first period was I guess, Lunatic Soul first, second, and Impressions. It was more into Oriental stuff, because I was really into Dead Can Dance since the very beginning. And I always wanted to create my music in solo project like, the music from a different world. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do something modern. I just wanted to make it sound like something from outer space, from the world beyond. And I needed this. But with Walking on the Flashlight Beam, I decided to put more electronics to this. Even in Impressions I started, because I thought that maybe I should also explore another area that I adore, which means, because I grew up on Tangerine Dream music, I grew up on, Vangelis, Jean-Michel Jarre, and Kraftwerk and that kind of stuff. So
I have all those vinyls from my dad actually here. He gave them
so that's why all this love to cinematic music, to instrumental sounds, and I just wanted to add something, at least a flavor, at least a touch of electronic music. So Walking on the Flashlight Beam was something in between those Oriental things and electronic. With the next albums, Fractured and Under the Fragmented Sky, I did more electronic things. And then I just simply, after those two albums, I decided to go back to roots, literally and figuratively, because I kind of missed this organic sound from the very first albums. But what changed, I didn't want to do this in an Oriental way. I didn't want to create the album which sounds like the world music, like from, I don't know, Turkey or something. But I wanted to use my own roots, and folk music has always been with me, because you need to know that I was born in a small town in the Mazurian Lake district in Poland, and it's a very small town. The town of forests and lakes, and I left this place at the age of 25, and I moved to Warsaw, and then I started Riverside. But my very first beginning, my childhood and everything was in that kind of area, probably, and the folklore had always been close to me. So probably subconsciously, I always wanted to go back to those forest lands and just record the album, which is really connected with this. And there's also one more thing, because each Lunatic Soul cover has a different color. So I had black and white and a gray at the very beginning. Later, I had the navy blue and the red. So after blue and red, here comes the green. So when I had this green color, I said, okay, now it's time to just simply move back to forest, green, and which means the woods. So I started to do the music from the woods. These are my songs from the woods. But based beautiful. Mostly on Dead Can Dance and my my nature influences, and maybe some Swedish influences that I like, because I'm a huge also fan of the bands like Hedningarna. So I said, okay, maybe it's time for that kind of album. And here we go. We've got Through Shaded Woods.
Yeah, looking at you just mentioned the album covers, and looking at all of them in one place, it's quite obvious that the first three had this Lunatic Soul snake symbol on it. Then Walking on Flashlight Beam and Fractured had this kind of star constellation, and Under the Fragmented Sky was different. And now we are also back to that snake symbol. Yeah. Quite symbolic in a way as well, right?
I love that kind of things. I have to say. The same was with Reality Dream Trilogy, 3 words in the title, 9 songs. And later, Anno High Definition had 4 words. Love Fear the Time Machine 5. Shrine of New Generation Slaves 5. Love, Fear and the Time Machine 6. Wasteland 7 on the cover that you can see. And the same was with Lunatic Soul. I created something which I called the Circle of Life and Death, when you can find all the albums. And there are albums on the side of death, and there are albums on the side of life. On the side of death, we've got Organic Sound and the snake as a symbol. And on the side of life, we have electronic music, and the symbol is it's fractured. It's not like it doesn't look like a snake. It's not rounded. It's more like, divided with many weird things. So you can see the symbol from the distance mostly. So that was my idea, and I just wanted to kind of connect the new album with the first ones, and that's why it's so organic also. So yeah, that's my game. I like this, When I think of something, I always look at it from the wider perspective to see something as a part of something bigger. So I don't know why I do this. Maybe because I always was a huge fan of games and some kind of things connected with the stories. So cool. Yeah, here we go.
Talking about the songwriting, I'm wondering if you're when you sit down and write a song, do you know, like, do you sit down and say, okay, now I'm writing something for Lunatic Soul, and now I'm writing for something for Riverside, or you sit down and see what comes and see in which direction the music wants to go?
The first option is the best option, because I usually work on an album and I try to start from the blank page and focus mostly on the subject that I'm going to write. And it usually starts with the title, with the idea for the color of the cover, and with the main thought about what this album is going to be about. Yeah. And I am the guy who's just trying to plan my schedule, like 3 years ahead, 4 years ahead.
Wow. That's
and I always try to do something like, okay, this year, this is the Riverside time. After this, the next year, probably we will make shows. We'll play shows, the tour, we'll go on a tour. And the very next year, there will be a gap when I can just do something with Lunatic Soul. So when the time comes, and let's say on the table now we have the new Riverside album, so I'm trying to just simply focus on that and do this. When it's done, when it's finished, and when I'm on tour with the band, I start to think about, usually it's like that, I start to think about the new Lunatic Soul. And in between, I'm trying to, keep the ideas, to collect the ideas for this. I'm just recording this on my iPhone or something like this, some short moments of joy, and collect them. And later I'm choosing the best parts and try to work on this. If it's Riverside, then I start to work with my colleagues from the band. And if it's Lunatic Soul, I just start to do it by myself, but also with the guys from the studio. Because the biggest difference between Riverside and Lunatic Soul is that Riverside, mostly, we try to work together. And maybe not, maybe last 2 albums were kind of similar to Lunatic Soul, which I want to change. But it was always connected with the band. But under Lunatic Soul, it's just like the solo project, so I can do this and lots of things by myself, mostly. And it's based on the studio working.
Yeah, if I read it correctly, is the Through Shaded Woods is also the first Lunatic Soul album that you did entirely by yourself, without any guest musicians like before. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. But I did this already in the past too. I mean, like, for instance, Walking the Flashlight being the fourth album, I did only with the drummer.
Yeah.
So the rest instruments was under my control too. But this time, I just didn't see the drums. I didn't want to see the,
like a classic drum kit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just wanted to change the approach. And I changed this, I still remember when Dead Can Dance decided to just skip the drums. They recorded, Within the Realm of a Dying Sun. So that was the new beginning for them. And I also believe that Through Shaded Woods, because of some moves, sounds different. So it sounds different, yeah.
So it didn't.
But yeah, answering your question, yeah, that's true. This is the first album when I play it by myself. Yeah, exactly. And I did this the same year. I did the electronic album that I released by myself, which is called Lockdown Spaces.
Yeah, right.
And I just titled this Mariusz Duda, and I also played on all instruments, but I had only like, I don't know, 3 or 4, like keyboard, some drum machine, and the synthesizer bass. So which was pretty simple because I just wanted to do this very, enigmatic and also not too much. Yeah, but the new Lunatic Soul it's too much. I mean, there's lots of things around, lots of instruments.
Lots of layerings. The Lockdown Spaces release was pretty spontaneous, right? If I remember correctly.
But it was during the session of the new Lunatic Soul, so those albums are really connected to each other. I remember the moment when, because I started Through Shaded Woods at the very beginning of 2019, and and we had the tour with Riverside, Wasteland tour, the tour promoting our last album, which was really intense, lots of shows everywhere, and I had a problem to find gaps in the studio, actually. But I tried every time. Like we were coming back from the tour, and I had like 2 weeks of freedom, so I used at least 1 week to go to the studio and do something with Lunatic Soul. But basically, at the end, in the middle of the year, I have everything composed in 2015. So later, it was just like adding some layers, just replacing the instruments from demo to something now, the album version and stuff. And I'm that kind of person who, at least every year, needs to create something, And I just wanted to invent something. I just wanted to have something new. And my coming back to this session, through Shaded Woods session, was just like, oh my God, again, really? The album is already composed. I'm boring. So what have I done? I just did the second CD. This is what I started. I did an additional music. I did the second CD, and we've got like the double version. Lunatic Soul Through Shaded Woods has a double version. Has a additional content with including the music that has almost 40 minutes. And my longest song that I did, like Transition 2, which is the 27-minute long or something. And I felt happy. So I returned to the main album. But in March, when I had to go back from the tour and I have to come back to Through Shaded Woods, I was boring again. Let's say, oh my God, I'm tired of this album. Let's try something else. And we did Lockdown Spaces. And after those 2 weeks of work, I felt like a child. I remember this. I said, okay, now it's time to just finally finish the album. And I had this boost because of Lockdown Spaces, and I finished Through Shaded Woods, and I'm pretty happy for the result, actually.
That's very cool. So you just said every year you have to create something. What are you going to create next year?
I think it's about time to go back to Riverside, because next year, definitely we need to move on, since we just ended up the tour in March. We had to break this, of course, cancel this, and have this lockdown thing. I closed myself in the studio and did all these things by myself. But we took a break. Everyone just focused on their own solo things, musically and personally. But with the end of this year, we're definitely going back to each other. And next year, that will be the year of Riverside, I guess. I'm not sure if we will be ready with the new album. I try to do my best, but definitely we will release something. And since we have now Maciej on board, because Maciej Meller became the official fourth member of the band since February 2020, I really want to step back a bit. I don't want to record another solo album by Mariusz Duda and release this under Riverside name. And to just want to go back to the Reality Dream trilogy mood and just like, four guys in the rehearsal room just trying to do something together. I just want to be, the leader of the band who's just collecting the ideas and doing the puzzle, not like the guy who's just inventing everything. I do hope that that kind of opportunity will be this time.
Sounds great. Talking about Maciej Meller, at the end of our interviews, we always have a little section that we call "What's in Your Walkman," and Maciej Meller, he released a solo album recently, and I haven't gotten around to listening to it. So I was assuming maybe you have heard it, and you can tell me or can tell us your favorite song from it. So we can dive into that as well.
I guess the song "Frozen" is a really cool song. It represents the album. For me personally, I'm so happy for Maciej that he started to do something like this, because we've been talking for lots of time about it, and I said to him, like, I know this is maybe ungrateful role for you because you have to play with us only on the live shows. You can create the albums with us yet. So maybe you should start to work on your, position. Just think of your solo album. Maybe it's time for this.
Mm-hmm.
And he did this. I was the spark. I was the spark of this fire. I'm very happy for this.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward.
He also used one of my ideas, actually, for his album. He just said, I really love one of those sketches that you've sent me in the past. Can I use one for my solo album? And I said, sure, why not? So I guess I should say that this is the song Trip, probably. So maybe I should say that this is my favorite because I'm the co-composer. But I really like Frozen. This is a really good song, really.
Cool. I'm really looking forward to discovering this album. As I said, I haven't gotten around to it yet. But for our What's in Your Walkman section, I would like to ask you if there has been anything lately that you've been listening to that you want to recommend to our listeners, to your fans, that you thought was really cool.
Actually, I'm just digging the Talking Heads and David Bowie discography right now. I don't know why. I'm just really into this, and of course, I just started to listen to the music that sounds similar to the new Lunatic Soul, which is connected with Scandinavian folk. And I didn't know that there's such a lot of things recently. And I'm going to prepare the playlist for this, but I think that I really love the new Myrkur album.
Mm-hmm.
I can't pronounce the title, I'm sorry, because and I also, from what I heard, the new Wardruna, it's going to be really cool. And the Heilung is also really cool. So that kind of bands I'm listening from time to time too.
Cool. I also have a couple of entries for the What's in Your Walkman section for today. And that would be, the first one would be actually label mates of Lunatic Soul on K-Scope. And that's the Ozric Tentacles. They have their 20 Whatnot album out Space for the Earth on Kscope right now, and they also have some kind of psychedelic vibe that you have on Lunatic Soul every now and then. Only a little bit more melancholic, maybe. I mean, Lunatic Soul is not as far advanced hippie as Ozric's Tentacles. But that's a cool new album. And as I said earlier, I listened to the first Lunatic Soul today, and there was one song. No, it was on Fractured. I was listening to Fractured as well today, and on the song Battlefield, there's a little synth melody that reminded me a lot of an important main theme on Pain of Salvation's B album. So that's what I'm gonna listen to later tonight as well, because it reminded me of that like this little folky melody. I don't know if you know the B album from Pain of Salvation. It's like bum bum ba da dum bum bum ba da dum bum bum ba da dum bum.
Oh yeah, really? Maybe I've heard this in the past, but I don't remember this. But if it sounds like something from Lunatic Soul, so yeah. But they were first.
I assumed that it was subconsciously the similarity. And to finish things off, I also want to put in the playlist that will be accompanying this podcast. I wanted to put my favorite song from the new Gösta Berlings Saga album from Sweden, which is Vinsta Juldklocka or something like that. I'm probably butchered it, the Swedish here, but I think that also has a little bit this repetitive thing going on there. So that's gonna be in the playlist. In the first part of the playlist, of course, there's gonna be the new Lunatic Soul singles, and then I'm gonna put some best of Lunatic Soul through the years, and then your recommendations and my recommendation. That's gonna be a really cool epic playlist. Thank you, Mariusz, for taking the time and talking to us here on the Progcast. All the best with the release of the new Lunatic Soul album, Through Shaded Woods, on Kscope. I was your host, Dario, and this has been another episode of the Progcast. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and listen to great music.
Thank you very much. Stay safe and sound.
The Progcast is a production of Stuus Media and is presented by the Prog Space. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stengel-Lewis, Blake Lewis, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant, and Van Kirsch does our graphics. New episodes of the Progcast drop every Monday and Thursday. And don't miss our Friday Top 5 episode where we discuss our favorite new releases from that week. For more interviews and reviews in the written form, check out theprogspace.com.